Welcome everyone to episode 13 of Spike Down. My name is Stephen Fortune, and joining me is Sean Garrett. And it's playoff time, so that means it's time to dive into the matches, standout players that are heading into playoffs, and of course our predictions. And let's just dive straight into the players. Sean, we had a quick conversation before jumping into this, and we were trying to figure out what players we want to highlight. And we'll just go through the list. We picked 4, and we'll start with the one that's probably on everybody's mind is Qualanoob. And you're really hyping up this kid, and I can see why. He's like, to you, my Redux. That's basically what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think of Koala Noob as like I'm kind of thinking of him as like the GOAT duelist in challengers, in my opinion. Like he's the best
Fair.
overall duelist. And while his stats wouldn't say that in the second split, if you look overall, that's just what he is. And that he has a lot of help by having great initiator play around him, which is honestly so key for duelists. Like you look at like VCT Americas, you look at someone like Osbus, he needs Common. You look at like someone like Artist, he needs someone like Crashies. And you look at Qualadoob and he has like Nismo next to him. Of course he's gonna be insane, right? Like he just has the GOAT supporting him. So he's gonna look like the GOAT. And that's why I think Qualadoob just has to be praised. Like he will always put up numbers in this team.
Yeah, and you think about the the contrast too. Is you mentioned Nismo, and there's also EU. It's like he's getting 2 of the best initiator flex players, probably in Challenger. It's hard for him not to flourish, and I think there is also a certain level of talent that he has to kind of live up to, and I think he's proven that. Even before Challenger started, like this kid's the real deal, and he's been absolutely destroying this split. And from one duelist to the next, Moist Moguls is, if anybody was following us on Twitter, we saw a post where they are first in pretty much every single category imaginable at the end of split 2, which makes sense going 5-0. But these guys have looked deadly, and Sim is right up there. And I'm intrigued to kind of see if Sim can keep this up. Keep in mind, I would say his stats are comparable to Koala's, very similar ACS. His headshot's a bit higher, which tells me he's rifling more than he's opping, which kind of makes sense in the Moist system. I feel like when Sim pulls out an op, they're typically ahead. Wherein, like, if he has the option, like money's tight and he has the option between glass cannon, op, or rifle, I think he normally goes rifle, or Koala might be the opposite. But really talented kid who kind of came out of nowhere real quick.
Dude, that's what I thought too. Like when I first saw Moist like split 1, right? When they qualified in, I was kind of sleeping on them because I didn't know much about Sim, but I quickly became a believer in this kid. Like he is incredible when you watch him. Like he's very raw as a player. That like compared to Koala Noob, I think I'll watch him play a little bit more aggressive and overextend a little bit more, but the plays that this guy makes are insane. He just like takes over games, and I promise you, if you watch a Moist game, he will win single-handedly 3 rounds or like 2 to 3 rounds every game, like pivotal rounds. I see it time and time again. This guy is so good.
Yeah, and you know how you're talking about Koala and his backup cast. He's backed up by the likes of Fly and Brock. So there's an interesting trend of how much does a good initiator translate to a good duelist? And I think there is an interesting balance of threshold of skill and mechanical skill in a duelist, backed up by a comparable utility usage by their support players. And I think Moist and M80 kind of have that perfect balance, but there is obviously that skill that these players has to possess. And I know Sim, he's a grinder. He's been around for a while. Probably less known than I would say Koala in the sense of historically, right? Like he's more of a Raze Jet mix, so 121 games on Jet on record, 112 Raze. So he's kind of split up his Jet and Raze gameplay. I would say he's come into his own, however, as a main Jet duelist, and I think the meta is kind of back to Jet can play every map now, which I find interesting also, which suits these two players specifically.
Yeah, exactly. And to draw a comparison to those that probably don't know a lot about Sim, I would say he is most similar to like Leaf as a Jet main, right? Whereas when I watch Leaf play Jet, he's not going to op a lot. He's going to be very aggressive with a rifle. Like he typically is like playing off of like one initiator's utility a lot, and he makes a lot of plays individually due to like subconscious feelings in the moment and just mass experience, like with reps, right? That's the kind of stuff you'll see when you watch Sim.
And obviously backed up by Flya, their in-game leader, who honestly, I don't know if I want to use the word peaking because we don't really know how good this kid can be. We've seen moments of it in the past, right? When he was on phase for a brief moment. We've seen glimpses of greatness, but the consistency wasn't there. But Split 2 kind of changed that in my mind. I'm like, okay, like Fly is not only the real deal and he's calling, but this dude is just winning everything he does. It feels like he can't do anything wrong. And when you have that feeling about a player, you're like, you can throw him in any situation. You feel like he's gonna come out on top. It's a weird feeling to have with a player.
Dude, I know exactly what you're saying, right? Like, normally when you watch in-game leaders, myself included, you'll see them have like mental fluffs. Like their
Yep.
crosshair placement won't be that good. Maybe someone will peek them and they'll be a little bit delayed because they'll be looking at their mini map, or like weird stuff happens mechanically when you spectate an in-game leader. But when I spectate Flya, it just seems like he's a very, very solid support player. Like
Yeah.
he is doing everything that he needs to for his team. He's alive in the late rounds, and he's like a fragger too in the in-game leader role, which is
Yeah.
insane. Like you look at the agents he's played, he's the flex player for the team, so he's playing like Viper, Breach, KO, and he just is doing his job in all of these games really, really well. It's not like he's first blooding a lot. It's not like he's just destroying people off the get go the way Sim is, but he's closing out rounds and he's making really good reads for Moist the entire way through.
Based on what Moist did in Split 2, I don't know. I feel like they might just be kind of smooth sailing for a little bit.
I don't know like who I would favor over Moist other than like maybe like M80 and
No.
maybe like the guard in the rematch without Josh playing. Eh, like there's
Yeah.
not many teams I would favor over Moist right now. They look really, really solid, and whoever they play in the playoffs, they're gonna give a really hard time. Like you look at them in the bracket if you're playing against them and you're probably a little bit scared.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely I definitely
Yeah.
can agree with that. I would not want to play them. And Nismo, the last guy we pulled up, he has been a rock for M80. No matter what version of Nismo you get, I think you know you're gonna get consistency and someone who's a really big team player. And I think he's proven that. I mean, the clutch rate, 75% clutch rate, like what? Like that's just crazy.
If you
Yep.
sort by rating right now throughout all of challengers, Nismo's at 1.22 and Verno is next at 1.16. It's like, or I guess Koala's tied with Verno. So that's pretty insane. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's actually incredible. The fact that he's doing that while his star duelist is also putting up those numbers
Yep.
is bonkers. Like, how are there enough kills to go around? Like,
He's
how
gotta be a trading machine. I feel like whenever you watch Koala go ham, Nismo isn't far behind. Like, he's
yeah,
always lurking. But if Koala's getting 2 to 3 kills around nearly and when they're heating up, it is wild to think, "Well, how is EU so high rated? Where are those kills coming from?" And, wait, how is Nismo? It's such a wild balance. He's gotta be one of the best support trade fraggers and challengers right now. It
yeah.
feels that way anyway.
That's exactly right. He's the best support trader, right? Because you look at the
Yeah.
agents he plays, he's playing like flash initiators, right? He's not playing the info scanning ones. He's playing like Sky, KO, and Breach a lot of the times. And that means he's staying pretty close to the duelist. He's typically like second in,
Mm.
and he does a really, really good job of trading the kills that Koala like finds for the team. So if Koala gets the entry, he's typically alive in like a great scenario. And if Koala doesn't get the entry, he's typically got a good enough setup and aim to trade the kill and put his team in a good place anyway, which is why M80 is such a good team. Is probably like the combination of those two and EU getting the info.
Yeah, such a cool mix. I can't wait. It looks like we might not get the Moist M80 matchup considering that's who we've been talking about. Till possibly, I mean, just looking at it, it would be upper semis. So a little ways away if that happens. And speaking of the matchups, let's go ahead and pull up the bracket. Obviously, it's a double elimination through and through. There's no points. So that's out the window. It's straight up double elimination all the way through with 8 teams. Well, I guess we'll just start top to bottom and kind of run through them quickly. M80 SR. SR squeaking into the playoffs, excited, and then they meet M80 first. Do you think that's for the best, or do you think they would have preferred anybody else?
That's a good question. I'm looking at the bracket, and honestly, like, I think this is a pretty decent matchup for Shopify in a sense that M80 out of all the teams might be the most buttoned up, right? Like, if
Yeah,
maybe the guard would be that team. Like, you could look at their VODs and be like, okay, this is what they're trying to accomplish. And, like they might go for this play off of that, but it's always going to feel like a buttoned up play when you play them.
yeah,
And Vanity typically has good reads in those scenarios. And I think with a couple weeks to game plan, I think Shopify could be in a good spot in that best of three. I mean, they did already beat them in
yeah.
stage two.
Yeah, and when I was talking to some of the players, Moose, I got to talk to Vanity again, and I was just like, when you play OR and you play Mad Lions, it feels like you guys are playing down to them. What is it? Do you feel like you play up to teams like M80 in the Garden? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's different for us for some reason mentally to go up against like an OR or a DSG, and then we go up against like an M80 guard. We feel like we're back where we should be in a weird like mental kind of check. So I feel like playing M80 first hopefully should set them in the right path, win or lose, to be like, okay, like we can do that, and this is what we need to work on.
I agree. I think it's the first time that, like, this SR team is going to have some time to take a breather and come into this
Mm,
feeling like an actual team. Like Vanity has had some time to gel with the players. And this is what Shopify will truly be, right? As a team. I feel like what we're going to see in the playoffs is a good barometer for Shopify, right? They looked really bad in split one, kind of faltered at the finish line in a couple of those series. They made the change, didn't really have enough time to implement Vanity, and they're finally gelling really well if you look at their results. So I think I agree with you. I think M81 seed, obviously they're playing the 8 seed. You would think they're going to
yeah.
steamroll them. It's not that simple. I think this game has a lot of hidden little details in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we mentioned, Vanity loves a challenge and he's got one out of the gate. Oxygen G2 are the one is the game that's gonna follow on the 31st. And man, Redux, Rustin in another team that kind of like Shopify needed some time to get these pieces in and get them comfortable. And now that you've seen Redux on Duelist and you've seen Rustin kind of settle in, what do you think about them and playing an 05 G2 through split two right away?
Yeah, I'm worried for G2, obviously, right? Like, yeah, they played second in split one. They don't get a single win in split
Yeah.
two. Coming into playoffs, they're playing this Oxygen team that's a total wild card in my eyes. Like the average age on that squad has to be so low. And Bonkar is just giving them these goat strats, these pocket strats,
Yep.
and they're just a very dangerous team. For G2, who typically relies on like a lot of probably anti-play from Shaz, it might be one of the more difficult opponents in this entire bracket in my eyes. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a good matchup for G2, but that doesn't mean that G2 can't win, right? Like, I think
Totally.
again, it's the same story as Shopify, right? After split one, G2 obviously made that super deep run. They placed second. They wanted to take time off. They were exhausted from that grind. So they took time off. Split 2 started. They got like no practice. They weren't even prepared to play split 2, but they had already qualified for playoffs. So who the F cares, right? Like, and then now that they're 0 and 5, they're probably like reinvigorated, wanted to
Yeah.
practice
Yeah.
again, I guess a little bit harder. They had a couple weeks now after the split's over, and this could be a very different G2. They could bust out some comps that are totally different than the ones we saw in
That's
stage
true.
2.
And I think the hardest part for them is balancing time on self and time for Oxygen because Oxygen have what 2 matches with Redux and Rustin in. You don't know if they're going to change anything. I'm sure Bonkar's thinking about it, and G2 is like, well, how much time we have to put into ourselves to get where we want. And I think that's the nice thing. The one advantage G2 has is that experience in Shaz, Dapper,
Yeah.
right? These players who've been there, done that, that understand playoff grind where Auction might not, right? Maybe Bonkar does and Mitch does, but it's you're also working with younger kids who, yeah, they want to win and they have the drive to win, but the grind is so fresh in a sense to them that it's like, okay, there's a lot to remember, right? Anti strat and focusing on yourselves. And so I'm curious to see that kind of balance. And we might just see two teams just focus on each other in the first match, like like you focus on themselves, excuse me,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe kind of be more reactive and not as hard as a counterplay. I'm sure it'd be a bit obvious if we see any counterplay, but I feel like it's just going to be two teams that are going to be working on themselves coming into this.
I tend to agree. Typically, Shaz is like an anti-shredder, but when you have 2 weeks like this
Yeah,
to really change things up, you can't really rely on anti-shredding from stage
yeah,
2. It's just too far away, right? Like, what if the other team comp changes, or what if they
yeah.
have plays off of the things in stage 2? So your anti-shredding is literally hurting you instead of helping you, right? It's just, yeah, I agree. They're gonna be focusing on themselves probably in this game.
Should be a fire matchup. Like all these matchups are gonna be fire. So I need to stop saying it. But Redux playoff debut, Scuba, Mitch, right? And then obviously Shazam, Dapper. They know what it takes. The guard phase. You've said it once, and I've repeated it to the players. The guard don't lose after a break, and there's been a break, and it's
Yes.
been a decent one at that. And their first opponent is phase. And when I was talking to the guys, I'm like, you guys know how to beat phase, don't you? They're 4-0 against them in historics, 2-0 in challengers. I mean, they just have their number.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think out of all the games in the playoffs, this one is just the most veg. Like, this is just I don't know. It's nothing against FaZe. It's nothing against FaZe, because I actually think FaZe is an insane team and they can make a lower bracket run, but like you said, there's something about this guard team after a
Yeah,
break where you don't know what they're gonna do, you don't know what they've been cooking, but we all know they've been grinding. We all know they've been
absolutely.
cooking up strats, and that they're coming into this game and they're gonna have some crazy pocket strats, some insane ult plays, and their pistols are always insane. Like, watching the guard play is like it's like a work of art. Like, these guys just like
Yep.
craft stuff in Valoplant all day. I swear to God, like
And
everything
on
they
top of
do
that,
just
like
seems perfect.
not only do they have unreal strats, but I think they're one of the most versatile mid-round adjusting teams in challengers, which maybe is a reach, but watching them, it's like they flow like water. Like the way they all communicate, you can kind of tell how quick they react to things. Like sure, they've been together for a while. I'm sure some of that's protocols, but some of it's got to be on the fly, like reacting and being super versatile. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths.
Dude.
Not only is like, how do you get a read on this team? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so going into that point you just made, when I was working the Tarek Ludwig Invitational, I talked a lot with Josh and Valen and a couple other players on the guard, and I'm trying to remember, like maybe Jonah. And they were telling me about Josh's impact and what he's doing different than MC, because I was very curious, like,
Mm,
oh, like what's so different, right? Like, because they were giving Josh a lot of praise, and I know
yeah,
MC is a great coach, so I was like, huh, what's Josh doing? And apparently he really worked hard on working on their mid rounding and mid gaming using like
there we
his
go.
CS:GO fundamentals. And I was watching them throughout that tournament, and their post plans on Ascent, like the way they were thinking things through on the fly, because you got to keep in mind, like, it's not like you're always in a perfect 5-on-5 with the same
Yeah,
exact util, right? Just the way they play, like 3-on-4s and 4-on-2s, and like these weird scenarios where you can't have true preparation for, but you can have ideas and you can be quick to react to those ideas. And you
mm.
can tell Guard has thought through a lot of these things already.
That match, yeah, still watch. I would watch for the guards domination. Is probably what you watch for in
Yeah.
that one to see what kind of guard you're going to get throughout playoffs.
Res-
I want FaZe to do
Respectfully,
well, but
face.
respectfully, yeah, we'll be watching respectfully, because yeah, it's gonna be tough. FaZe are fighting an uphill battle, and finally, the final match of round one of upper quarters is Moist TSM. Now, this one, Moist are looking so good. TSM, they're kind of a roller coaster at the moment. Beating Shopify, close against M80, owned by Oxygen, losing to Turtle Troop. I don't know how to get a read on them.
Yeah. It's like
And the weird role thing
it,
too that's kind of going on.
part of me thinks that this could be like a trap game for Moist, right?
Mm,
Like they a little bit overlook them, and because I've seen TSM look so good, but then
hmm
like you're saying, it's been a roller coaster. Like stage 2 is kind of weird with TSM, the way they lost to M80, 2-1, right? Fair enough,
Yep.
fair enough. and then they just get blanked by Oxygen, there's the Turtle Troop, and you're kind of questioning like, "Oh, I thought maybe you would win, like, at least one of those," and
Yeah,
I don't know where to peg them now, like, as a team, like, in challengers, actually. They're kind of a wild card as far as
very true.
what I think of them. Whereas, like, Oxygen's a wild card regarding their talent and how they play the game, but I think they're an insane team that no one wants to play against. TSM is, like, one of those teams that they could beat Moist or they could just get blown out 0-2, and I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting feeling. They're one of the only teams where they'll have a player like Seven play Jet throughout Split 2, and then on maps they want him to play Cypher, he plays Cypher. So they have a duelist Sentinel split, and then they have Corey who plays Raze on Raze maps or Silva on non-Raze maps. It's such a because what other duelist in the world gets told go up on Jet at this crazy pace and then hop on Cypher and AFK on a cam? It's such a weird balance.
Bro, I don't know, man. They're cooking over there. They have Corey on,
They're
like,
doing
Gecko and
something.
stuff,
Yeah.
like, they're doing crazy stuff over there. But honestly, a lot of it looks it's weird, like, they look really good in some halves, and
Yeah.
then in the same map, the next half will happen, and they'll look terrible. And they can't recover mentally when they start losing is what I've noticed.
Mm.
I think that a lot of the problems with TSM might stem from mental stuff, like within the game and maybe
That would make sense.
communication. Because when they win, I swear to God, they just like snowball and it but when they lose, it's the same thing. It like avalanches down and they just get blown out. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about.
The meta is so open right now. We could get double duels comps. Seen, like, not in Challenger, I've seen some teams break out triple Senti in these recent tournaments that have been going on. So, like, there's some gaps in this meta because it's more open now. I don't think there's any, agents that you go, that's a must need on my team. It feels like we're in the most open meta currently. It's a team
Yeah.
fight meta, but it's a whatever you're comfortable with kind of meta, which I think is going to lead into playoffs. Some interest like Harbor Viper on Haven's been a thing going on in Americas. I'm sure we'll see that here.
Yeah, and maybe TSM did just spread themselves a little bit too thin by doing a lot of those things because I agree. I
Yeah.
think they could look really good in double duelist comps, like with Corey obviously
Hmm.
running one of the duelists, or they can look really good, where they run like harbor comps where Corey's
Yep.
playing a Gecko, or they've run no duelist comps where
Yeah,
Corey's
they've
playing
done some
Sova.
things.
And it's like, bro, they are really like going all over the place with their comps, and it has to be so difficult as far as just where you are as a player in a hit,
Yeah.
right? People don't really think of that. Like the duelist goes in first, and then the flash initiator might be right behind them, and then next is the info gathering initiator, and then next is the controller, and then there's a lurker sentinel somewhere else. But if you're just constantly just switching roles from map to map,
Oh
and
man.
there's just no consistency in how you take fights, it's gonna cause a lot of variance, I feel like.
Yeah, and it kind of trickles down to now your spacing's off, now your order of trading's off, and as you said, it's gonna feel clunky. It's gonna feel like the
Yeah.
gears are kind of grinding in opposite directions. We'll see if TSM can clean it up. It's unfortunately they have to play first, but that's kind of the bed that got laid in front of them. So we'll see if they can do it. So those are all the matches. Now we get to do the fun part and do some predictions. Sean, I do just want to let you know I tallied the predictions through Split 2. You ended with
Don't say it.
19 out of 30. Oh,
Don't say it.
and I ended with 20. I'm sorry.
No.
Look, you gonna beat me in playoffs, okay? Double or nothing. All right. Loser still gets that tattoo we talked about. We'll do it.
No.
It's okay. We'll still make it happen. That's okay. But yeah, we're gonna do predictions. It looked like I was a prediction king by one map, and that was because I think I was looking at it. I predicted like FaZe to win a match they shouldn't have. And that was my golden goose. So it doesn't
Oh.
make me better; it just makes me more lucky. So let's do our playoffs ones. We'll start at the top. M80 Shopify. I'm hard pressed not to take M80 here, Sean. I'm sorry.
I I mean, this is actually really hard for me. I know that I have bias, obviously, I'm on Shopify. I still think this is like a close to 50-50 game, and I'm gonna take
Mm,
Shopify just to pick the opposite of you. And I
sure.
actually do have a lot of faith in Shopify with 2 weeks of preparation, Vanity at the helm. Like, I
Yeah.
really do. They played M80 well the first time around, which goes to show they know how to prep against this team. and not many teams know how to prep against the M80. It's very
Yeah.
difficult because there's a lot of different looks they give, and that's where Vanity's experience probably really comes into play. Um, it's not gonna be easy though, because M80 has 2 weeks to craft stuff, right, and change their stuff, and it's not gonna be as anti-strat heavy maybe as it was in stage 2. It's gonna
Mhm.
be more on Shopify to have a good game themselves, right, as opposed to anti-stratting, which makes this a little bit of a risky pick by me, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm still going Shopify.
I respect it. I'll go M80. Oxygen G2. This one, you take me back to split one, end of split one, and you say Oxygen versus G2. Who are you picking, Keith? I'm picking G2 every time, no question. I'm conflicted at this point because, as you said, time off. G2 are going to be putting in the work. They're going to be both putting time probably into themselves, not looking at the other team too much. But I still don't feel comfortable picking G2 100%.
I totally understand that. I This is definitely one of the harder ones to predict because, yeah, you would think G2 can play better, but you really don't have a lot of reason to think that.
Yeah.
Like, you're just
Yeah.
going off of kind of name value and what happened a few months ago, and it hasn't happened for a long time, but you think the stars are gonna align, and, like, with the extra couple weeks of practice, it should happen again. And
Yeah.
I also feel that same vibe, like, it's it's very hard to pick against G2 here, but honestly, I'm gonna do it. I'm picking Oxygen in this game.
Ooh.
I have a lot of faith in this Oxygen team, and it's one of those games where I think, honestly, if G2 won, like, 2 games in Split 2, just the mental pressure alone on
Mm.
Oxygen would cause me to pick G2. But because G2 went 0-5, I think Oxygen is gonna come into this game fresh out of their high school classes, dude. These guys are all, like, 16 years old. They're gonna be so confident that they're just gonna peak everything. Like, they're gonna peak
Yeah.
everything, and they're not gonna have any fear in this game. But if G2
Yeah.
starts well, like, man, if G2, like, steals that first map, I think Oxygen could potentially crumble just because of the lack of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the big factor is experience to me. So against my better judgment, I will add, I'm probably making a mistake here. I'm going to pick G2, um, just on that experience card, and we'll see if it pays off. The guard phase, man, we kind of both. I think we're both on the same wavelength here, where nobody beats the guard after a break, and respectfully not phase. So
Respectfully Respectfully, the guard is winning this game, and, I'm already preemptively apologizing for when phase 2 owes them, and all of the guard fans are super mad at us for jinxing them.
please don't be mad at us, but we're going guard. So that's kind of
Yeah.
we'll stay on the same page for this one. And then Moist TSM, you did try to convince me that TSM could pull it back. They've looked great, but it's kind of the opposite of G2 fact here with Moist. A 5-0 split that makes it hard not to pick them.
Dude, it makes it so yeah, I don't think I'm taking anyone over Moist right now. I just don't. They're individual players. I think they might have looking across the bracket, you would argue maybe like M80 or like yeah, I'd say only M80 could have them beat for like skill across the entire roster. Like I
Mm,
watched Moist and they just fry people. Like all of the players just destroy people. They're not like the most polished as far as like executes or strats compared to
yep.
some of these other teams in the bracket. But man, can those guys aim. Like their form is always insane. They're
Yeah.
grinders through and through. And this is not a game that I think TSM can dominate. Like they just can't. It's going to be a very hard fought battle if TSM wins, and it's likely going to be easy for Moist unless they have some kind of weird lapse. So I'm picking
Yeah.
Moist.
I'm going to pick Moist as well. Also, a little note on that. They are boot camping. So they
Oh
are
shit.
together for the first time. So we might get that boot camp buff out of Moist. Man, all I can know for sure, because this is where my brain's kind of at, is these playoffs are going to be crazy. We're going to see new comps. We're going to see teams trying to take new strikes at maps. We're probably going to see some teams change their veto and their perma's now in. I can only imagine what's going to happen, and I can't wait. And I hope everybody is excited. That's the show. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow Sean Garrett and myself on our socials. Let us know what you think about our predictions. We kind of went against each other, so we'll see who pans out on top. And don't forget to follow Knights Arena to stay updated on everything Challengers. And the biggest game of NA Challengers is coming up right now. It's playoffs. Get excited.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we finally made it to playoffs. It feels like just yesterday that we began the first split all the way back in the early part of the winter of this year. But here we are, towards the tail end, ready to crown the best in North American Challengers and see who will be sending to Ascension as well. But before we spend too much energy talking about that, let's talk about the fan zone. If you guys haven't joined the fan zone at this point, I don't know what else I can tell you. You guys can jump in on the fan zone, pks.gg/fanzone. You can get involved in the action there. And you can ask a question that maybe gets asked in the post-match interview and also get player stats as well. Again, that's pks.gg/fanzone. Let's go ahead and reel in our analysts that will be joining me on the desk all day long. We've got M80 and we've got Roy, a.k.a. Strong Legs. Roy, I mean, it was an incredible second split. We saw a lot of things change from the first split, and they were even talking about it towards the tail end there. One of those storylines, G2, kind of just disappearing in that second split. But overall, I mean, things kind of went how we thought they would. Couldn't even get 5 minutes in. Roy mutes himself. We didn't even make it past the intro, Roy. I'll kick things over to Em. I mean, Em, what were your impressions here of this second split?
It's been fun to watch. Some teams really soared my expectations, and some kind of fell down a little bit. There's a few teams that we're going to be watching today, actually, which is one of my favorite matchups that we're going to be starting with. But overall, with Split 2, I think it gave an opportunity for teams that didn't do very well in the mid-season face-off in Split 1 to shine.
Well, we can take a look at the standings as well, because again, while Split 2 was great, it was a combination of all things. Split 1, mid-season face-off, and Split 2. That's what determined our 8 teams who are duking it out now here in Challenger playoffs. And Shopify Rebellion, it was squeaky bum time towards the tail end. They barely made it in with just 18 points. They faced off against Turtle Troop in a must-win scenario. And even coming into that final day, there were multiple teams' fates who were not yet decided, but we do end up with Shopify Rebellion as one of the teams who will be playing today. And we can take a look at the bracket as well. You kind of get an idea of how things ended up at the top end there with M80 and the Guard and G2 and Moist. Those teams have been playing spectacularly. But
yeah.
Here's something that's interesting, Em. We talked about this at the end of the last broadcast during the group stages for Split 2. Most of these first round matchups are rematches. They're all rematches from that mid-season face-off. We've seen all these games already.
Yeah, we've seen some of these games already, but keep in mind that the last time that Oxygen and G2 played, it's been quite a little bit of time. But the M80 versus SR game, that's a bit fresh, Bach. And M80, the only loss last season was to Shopify Rebellion.
So it is important to note too, like M80 versus Shopify Rebellion in the mid-season face-off, it was disguised. So basically just sub Shopify in for disguise. But otherwise, the bracket was very similar to this with some flip-flopping going on with teams swapping to the bottom end of the bracket and go to the top end. But all of the first-round matchups are kind of interesting. But let's focus in on our matches for today. We take a look at our schedule. We'll see what games we're going to be focusing on here for the first day of Challenger playoffs. Going to be kicking things off with M80 versus Shopify Rebellion, and then G2 heading against Oxygen, a match we've seen like 10 million times already.
Yeah, and coming into today, I mean, both of these games are very interesting, like I was saying, because first of all, we have a really good rematch going on of M80 versus Shopify. The first loss that M80 had in the split was only from Shopify, so that's why I think this game's going to be really fun to watch. Shopify is going to go in with full-on confidence. They beat M80, but also M80 maybe needed a loss, that's one of the best ways to learn from. And then for the second game later today is G2 versus Oxygen, and Oxygen has just been playing incredible, and G2, not the best in Split 2, to say it the nicest way.
Yes.
That's being very generous there, Em. Go ahead, Roy.
No, I'm going to circle back to when I was muted. I got everything worked out now, so we're good. But I was saying, Bach, the only thing that follows the G2 Red Sea of losses is a massive W streak, okay, Bach? We need to see that coming out right here. This is the turn of the tides.
Well, first we'll take a look at M80 versus Shopify Rebellion, who will be joining us here on the stream in just a moment. This is a match we did see more recently, but looking at this M80 roster, Roy, this is a team that is incredibly talented and was basically painted as the victors before the first game of Challengers even played out. Before we even saw this team play a single match, it was like M80 is number one.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so as well. Like, dude, they have the craziest team, okay? Their support players are absolutely bonkers. They have crazy duelists. They have a really experienced IGL. Their support staff is just immaculate. And keep in mind that Nismo, Xander, John QT, they're like in the top 7 already, like statistically on, you know, on some of these stats websites. But it's from top to bottom in terms of duelists, in terms of support, in terms of firepower, like they're probably the most well-rounded roster in Challengers.
Yeah, and watching M80 in general is just so exciting to watch as an in-game leader myself, because statistically, they are so strong on the attacking side, and I think that just shows on how confident they are. You can see it when they're playing. Their retakes are well coordinated. They definitely have a lot of things down to the T, and I'm expecting to see that when they're playing today again.
It hasn't been the same storyline, though, as that first split, where it was like pure and utter dominance. I do feel like M80 has always looked good. It's not like they looked bad, but it was maybe a little bit more difficult for them than it was in that first split. And you can see that play out here. This is Koala Noob's stats from split 1 versus split 2. Now, it's important to note, 223 ACS is still pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's not,
this
it's not
is a decline.
273 ACS, but this is the decline. It's just a significant downward trend. But the one that is a little bit more concerning potentially is the first kill, first death. Now, it's a significant uptick in deaths. His success rate is dropping. It went down about 20% almost, his success rate. It was 72% success rate in his first engagements in that first split, 53% here. It's still good, but it's just not as good as it was. But again, put an asterisk on it, sprinkle some serious amount of salt on there. They were already qualified. They knew they were going to be the number 1 seed, regardless of what happened here in split 2. So I think that gave them a little bit of comfort there, Em.
Yeah, and thinking about it a little bit, maybe one of the reasons why that slightly declined, although of course he's still playing incredibly well, is because maybe people have been watching on how he's playing, seeing his play style, his tendencies. That's something to think about, and maybe that's a cue for him to slightly change it up a little bit.
And it also potentially is just like, hey, I'm going to play a little bit more loose, a little more aggressive because of the fact that I don't have any pressure on me. In the first split, pressure was on. Yeah. They had to perform. In the second split, it's okay, we can kind of relax a little bit. Let's have some fun. Let's just kind of try new things, or maybe get a little bit more aggressive than we would have in the past, which Koala Noob's going to want to do because that's what he did anyway. And I don't really know how you turn it past 10, but apparently his knob goes to 11. But we can take a look at the results from the last matchup. These teams did face off against each other in the group stages, and it's actually surprising. It was a Shopify Rebellion 2-0, not just a victory, Roy. This was a 2-0. Even though it's close in game 1, game 2 was not even close.
Yeah, that was going to be my main point, is like the first map was really competitive. It could have gone either way. M80 was dropping pretty favorable rounds here and there, but Ascent was like undeniably just a pure domination from Shopify Rebellion. Like I think they're starting to show their colors, but I do also want to talk about the fact that I feel like Shopify Rebellion is a natural counter to M80. Like in terms of IGL versus IGL, in terms of duelists, in terms of like the support roles, in terms of the lurkers, like Shopify Rebellion's roster can't be slept on.
And one of the players you really can't sleep on is my man Vic. Vic was not an all-star in split 1. To be fair, I think most of Shopify struggled in split 1, but when you look at his split 2 stats, up significantly. He has definitely picked up his performance big time, and the change since Vanity was brought in as in-game leader is noticeable. Here's the interesting part, though. Despite the fact that Shopify had a more successful group stage here, it's a weird phenomenon. Everyone but Vic saw their stats dip. it's really strange. Like, Vanity was basically a lateral move from Dazzle when you just look at pure numbers, no bias, but obviously brings a different set of thoughts towards the game, a different mindset. Vic's the only one who saw a significant uptick. B-Dog, his numbers went down. Moose's numbers went down. Mata's kind of waffled in the middle. So it is interesting, but Vic was a big part of the reason why they were able to beat M80. He dropped 41 kills in that game. And Roy, it was like crazy from the first blood department with him and B-Dog. Like, these two were definitely tearing up that team. Interesting to see if they can do that again here.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about the fact that Koala Nu was downtrending statistically, and I think this match was probably the biggest reason why. He was completely shut down by Vic and B-Dog. Like, in terms of openers, in terms of like the first engagements, an area where Koala Nu is pretty much known for, to being that explosive duelist, that pretty successful opener kind of duelist. He was absolutely taken down by Vic and B-Dog in terms of the openers, and I think that has to do a lot with why Koala was performing poorly, and a big explanation to why Shopify Rebellion was taking such a clean win over M80.
Yeah, and just Shopify in general, I think the addition of Vanity is showing that they're making the right moves. You can tell that they're feeling a little bit more confident. They're getting their footing in together, and the chemistry is just working like a nice flow, a nice wave. And Vic in general, I mean, he plays agents like smoke agents and an occasional sentinel, which is not the easiest to frag on if your team's not doing well. So he's been at the top of the leaderboard many times throughout Split 2. And yeah, like you said, he's been just improving overall.
I mean, Em, as an IGL yourself, the difficulty of going from one team to the other and having just basically like 10 days to 2 weeks to completely retool from team you were on to the team you're on now and try to turn things around and get acclimated to a new environment. It's not like it was a new team that was formulated around you as the IGL. He took the place of someone else on a roster that existed for a year. That's got to be a tough challenge.
It is, and as a IGL, everyone's different. They all have their own way of thinking, of planning, of preparing. So what might work for one person might not work for the other person, for the other team. So what he's doing is working for his team, if you know what I mean, not to take away from who they had previously.
Well, we did have a chance to sit down and talk to the players themselves about the upcoming match, and then we know that you guys care about them a lot more than us anyway. So let's take a look.
I mean, I'd say their biggest strength is like their coaching staff. I think Happy is probably one of the best coaches in the world, to be honest. At least like from the outside looking in, their coaching staff seems to have like a really good grasp of like how they want to play the game. This also probably ties into the players as well. But I think the coaching staff, like based off what I've talked with some of the M80 players, like they praise Happy a ton, and their assistant coaches as well. I think they make their job easy on like John and whoever else the callers are in the team. So I definitely give a lot of praise from that team to the coaching staff for sure. I think they play a big part in their consistency.
I think obviously we had the game under control, especially on Split. We tossed the ball, I could say. We lost a couple important rounds that we should have won. I think it was a good thing that we lost at the end of the day. If you look back at Split 1 when we lost versus the Guard, when we lost, we came back and we just went undefeated for the rest of the season. So when M80 loses, usually we're the type of team that learns a lot. You know, we watched these games back to back. We kept on talking for hours and hours. So we learned a lot from this loss, and honestly, I think it was more of a good thing than a bad thing. It didn't really matter for us. At the end of the day, we were just playing for seeding. You know, we knew we qualified. And yeah, we'll be ready for the revenge. I can promise you that.
I think we've always been a team, even with Dazzle, that like plays to the opponent's level. So no offense to TSM, but when we played against TSM in our first match with Vanity, we played to their level and they beat us for it. And against M80, we played to their level, and I think us on that level is better than them, simply. So if we can play at that level again, I think you'll see the same thing.
I think it's more of an advantage to us. I feel like we kind of understand like where their map pool is like going towards. Like I feel like I have a good understanding on how strong they are on certain maps and stuff like that. Also, I feel like their playstyle is like readable in my eyes. I feel like we can definitely have an idea on like how they play on certain maps and stuff like that, and I feel like we'll be prepared enough to beat them.
Other teams have to watch out. Probably me one-tapping you. kind of insane. Nah, but I don't know. My teammates are all really good. I think we have pretty good fragging power across the board. I don't think we have like, I mean, it's like a meme, like Koala said, like we don't have an X factor, but I feel like it's kind of true. Like I feel like all of us have pretty decent individual levels. I think Vic, B-Dog, and Mata and Moose are very consistent players, at least from my short time playing with them. They're all like really, really good individually, and then I can shoot sometimes, but I don't know. I think overall, like we just need to play well. That's all it is.
I mean, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, like I was telling you, we were playing only for seeding, so we got a couple surprises coming up. I think people will be shocked a bit by the changes, but it's gonna be good, man. And I think people won't be ready for what's coming, and even Shopify won't be ready. So I think it's gonna be good.
Honestly, they're in the other group, split 1, so I've like only heard the rumors, and we didn't really scrim them. But once we played them, like they're just normal players. They're not. I don't want to say they're not anything special because they obviously have like something special going on there. You don't go, 4-1 or twice like without being really good. But like I saw their interviews, like Noob saying like we don't have an X factor and stuff like that, and they're gonna 13-0 us. Like I think that's just pure delusion coming out of him. And if he has that mentality again, he's gonna go -20 again. So he needs to focus on himself, and that's what we're gonna be doing as well.
They're like definitely good. I feel like they, with this 2 weeks, I feel like they have the potential maybe like sneak out like a weird like move in the vetoes again. So as long as like we're fully prepared, I feel like it's just gonna be another 2-0 either way. But who knows? Could be anyone's game.
Oh, well, I mean, what did we just see? We just watched a lot of smack talking happening from Moose. Yeah, I mean, that's good because that's the kind of passion and desire that we need from these players. You could tell that they were playing, that they were feeling super confident based off of listening to what they were saying. Nismo also just kept saying over and over, at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. We can go into this game. The best way to learn is from losing. So I think that's a really good mentality that they have. But Shopify is feeling really confident, Roy.
Apologize, everybody, for the extended break, but we are back, and tap, tap, tap. The mics are working, which is a beautiful sign. We are just about ready to jump into our first series of the day here for Knights Arena NA Challengers Playoffs. Let's take a look at our map picks and bans here for the series between M80 and Shopify Rebellion, as these two teams are waiting to lock horns in a rematch best-of-3, Roy, from the group stages and the maps Ascent, Pearl, and Lotus.
Yeah, I'm actually not surprised to see the Ascent pick, to be honest. That was a really good map for Shopify Rebellion last time, so I'm completely unsurprised by that pick. The Pearl is a bit of a twister, though. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, when we actually look at this Pearl pick, M80 in the past seemed to like it a little bit, but they were kind of having inconsistent results. It seemed like they were struggling at times to wrap their minds around the map.
Yeah, and it looks like they haven't touched it yet in Split 2, so they probably did a little bit of revamp, especially because they haven't played it. And when we were hearing Nismo talking, it was talking about different comps, so maybe they have something totally different for us today on Pearl.
This is something that they did tease us with, and there is certainly a possibility that we will see a mix-up and a change in the agent compositions as we look at Pearl. We've seen teams do some interesting things, even looking at like the game changer scene where we've seen teams run Phoenix on the map. Interested to see what M80 decides to bring to the table because they mentioned changes. So now my ears have been perked up and I'm waiting for it. If we need it, we will be going to a third map of Lotus, which is a map we've seen these teams play in the past, separately, not necessarily against each other. But looking at those first two, we kick things off on Ascent, and we mentioned it. This is potentially a nice place for the series to start, as we did see these teams face off in the group stages, and it went to Ascent, and it was pretty strong coming in from Shopify Rebellion, if I remember correctly. I think it was like 13-6.
That's
it was
correct.
not a great showing from M80 in that case, and we'll be taking a look at the Asian comps in just a second as soon as it's ready, so we can get an appreciation for what this series is going to look like when the pen hits the paper. But Roy, looking at a map like Ascent, I can't imagine that those changes that they were talking about is going to happen on a map like Ascent. Maybe,
Yeah.
but
I mean, there's only so many things to do unless you're going to pull out the wacky comps, right? Like if you're going to pull out the Viper or you're going to completely switch your script, that is a possibility. But I think overall, it's just a mental game on this map specifically. I don't think there'll be that many twists. I think it'll be pretty straightforward. It's just whether who's adapted the best for that map.
I mean, Em, if you were to come in today and you were saying, as an IGL, expect changes, what would you be meaning when you said that? Would you mean different map pool, different agent pool, duelists that weren't duelists before? What would you be thinking?
Two things. It could be a complete buff, and it means absolutely nothing. Or bluff. I said buff or bluff, whatever.
That both work.
Good work.
They both work. But probably either different comp. Probably a different comp, a different pace of the game. Something that's gonna just throw them for a loophole. But also for Lotus, for a map 3 decider, I think that's a really interesting map pick because I haven't seen it be picked from Shopify in Split 2. So again, maybe that's a whole nother map where we're going to see something completely different. So we have 2 potential maps where we might see a whole new 2 sets of teams.
Yeah, the last time we saw this Shopify roster play the map was back in Split 1. It was during the group stages because obviously that team did not make the mid-season face-off, despite the fact that they were supposed to be one of the stronger teams. If you looked at the top 4 coming into the group stages, the Guard, M80, G2, Shopify, it was basically those 4 teams. Everyone thought that they would be the top 4. And for the most part, we were all right, except for Shopify. That team just didn't really hit their stride. And if you look back, they were 0-2 on the map. They did have a close loss against Moist Moguls. It was 13-11. They got dominated by FaZe on the map, which is not a surprise. It's a map that FaZe has shown a tendency to like. But since then, we haven't seen them play that map. And it's important to note, it's a different roster, even though it's a minor change of just one player. It is the in-game leader. So as you know, that makes pretty big changes all across the board. John QT will not be playing Sentinel. I feel
Triple
like Roy,
initiators.
that's triple even. Yeah. I'm not even paying attention here. I'm so blown away by John playing Breach instead of playing KJ. This is very interesting from M80.
Yep. Keep in mind, though, that they have played this comp previously in the early Split 1, and they did amazingly with it on the Ascent side. So I don't know if they've revamped it or they're just going back to a script that's just going to throw off Shopify Rebellion. I'm not entirely sure, so that's something we're going to have to see. But in terms of how they play the comp and how well it's been, how effective it has been while they've played this comp, they've done amazing with it. And they've been super proactive on both sides, and I'm pretty excited for this matchup, Buck.
Well, I'm excited too, which is why we're going to hand it over to our casters. We've got Tanner Metro and Dan Dryad standing by to jump into our first match. Take it away.
Thank you so much to the desk. Yes, Dryad, we finally get to jump into the action as the cat ears have never looked better. Dryad.
It's not cat ears, I swear, man. It's a chair.
It's the chair, not the cat ears. I'm glad it's not the cat ears. I was going to put mine on, but then it would have been hard for me to
you
take
can
them
go
off.
ahead.
Tanner Meowtro may make an appearance today because we have to lighten the mood. We're starting a little bit later, but we are looking to jump right into the action. We've got a long day ahead of us, 2 best of 3s. Dryad, we know that we are basically buckling in for 6 maps because that's just the way that things go. But most importantly, the compositions that we get locked in here on Ascent M80, this kind of proves, Dryad, that they were just testing things in Split 2. They were trying out a Sentinel comp here on Ascent. It didn't work the way that they're hoping for. Now when it matters, they go back to the triple initial.
And I liked it because they talked about it. They said we're going to test different things, run different things, and now they go back to the comfort, but in a renewed way that we have to be expecting.
Oh, yeah, and a reminder to the desk, right? The guy that we highlighted was Koala Noob. He needs to be the guy to get things started, and he's the first one to fall. Vanity collects that kill, but with that Vic finds himself all on his lonesome here. So it started good. It looked like the green light for Shopify Rebellion. And unless Vic can do something incredible, which he's done in this matchup before, this should be an M80 pistol.
Going pretty quickly as well for M80, but that aggression towards mid, everybody gets taken down. EU is going to guarantee that third kill onto the fade. And that is the first pistol here for M80. And I know that we talked about the change once again, going back to M80 and this composition, but also on the other side, one that has always caught my attention is this Shopify comp that nobody else in NA is running. It's actually a Navi comp that they played a couple times, but Navi all the way in Europe is a team that has been playing around, testing different things too. And Shopify, they actually decide to stick with this for a little bit longer. It is the comp here that gave them their result, and that's victory against M80 all the way in Split 2, but things now look different for M80.
And an aggressive buy from the Shopify squad. 3 sheriffs and Marshall into this next round. You are hoping for the absolute best. Meanwhile, Koala sits upon his perch out towards mid. This time we'll find the first kill. It's B-Dog gone. It's Marshall down. This investment starting to hurt a bit more until Moose finally snaps back. Nobody's here on this B side either. Obviously, unbeknownst to Shopify, they're starting to head this way though.
Quite a little pressure, but Koala towards mid that is able to pivot a little bit more, get closer towards that B side towards market. And Vanity as well, knowing exactly where this is. Something that Spikedown mentioned as well, the mental games here, the IGLs kind of going against each other and making this potentially a really good match for Shopify.
And all that investment, should this round end in a loss, really means nothing. Now that they've got that spike planted, some extra credits in the back pocket of Shopify, and they'll look to hang on for now. Cloud bursts out to allow Koala and the rest of the team to slowly walk across. A good one-way smoke, though, from Vic. Gonna try and help his team from just off the side. 3 players tucked away. Flash is out, gonna slow things down. There's the backstab. Finally, Vic makes good on the position, but 2 kills in response. Make it 3 as Koala, well, he starts to collect here on Ascent, but it's not done just yet. Moose gonna try and fight his way out of this one of the 1v2, but he gives himself up just a bit too much to both of the players, and it was dicey. At the end of the day, it belongs to M80.
Great to see from Koala early on as well, right? Another one of the points that the desk was mentioning, this Spike down as well, Sean was mentioning, Koala, that even recently you're seeing that aggression that has always characterized him, but maybe after he gets taken down right away, or maybe he just gets the entry and gets taken down before that kill even happens, right? There's those possibilities, so you need to expect for playoffs a Koala noob that is on top of the game from those early rounds until the very end, because the impact this guy has on M80 is just insane.
We'll see if that impact continues as he's sitting on a Bulldog this round. This bonus hurts just a bit for M80, not the best weapons. Meanwhile, for Shopify, comfortable in the reinvestment. Light shields across the board, and good bit of util from EU. Not only figure this one out, but they want to fight off the back end. Both initiators fighting this side of the map, and Nismo collects the first kill.
The Guardian, the round before, was actually in the hands of Colin, who passes it onto Nismo. And playing in opposite parts of the map, as though the early support that Colin was getting was initially from Sander.
Love that flash over the top there from Mata. Doesn't quite find the value they're hoping for. And meanwhile, all this is happening. Shopify trying to find a way back into B main, and they're going to look to do it through a backstab here. Moose going to have to go around the world, and Xander. Well, Xander's here, ready for it. Finds the first pick there on the trade, but numbers still favor M80. And the spike in a dangerous position, but look how much Shopify have to use just to try and clear this out, to get the space, grab the spike, and then head for the hills.
30 seconds left.
Such a good read as well for M80. This is something that they're constantly doing, right? There's a call, you know where the players are going to be. Immediately, everybody is there, just completely overwhelming the remaining players of Shopify. Now you only have 2. The spike here is going to get planted. But now the rifles are on the side of the defense here for M80.
Yeah, it looks good for M80 right now. We'll see what Mata can find, if anything. Koala goes leaping by, re-clears. Mata finds the first U there on the trade, and now B-Dog, well, has some big shoes to fill. The Knives, the first one to drop. Non-QD just behind him, and 1 of 3. Not going to be enough here. M80 keep the win streak alive.
With the knives as well for Koala for that last kill. Really good bonus for M80. And again, something that we just don't see very often for challengers, but overall for Valorant, right? Where the teams are so structured, you often see them on the defense holding on to that positioning, even on towards that A side until the very end. That KO, that Omen especially. But here, M80, they have that info. They're not going to be afraid to leave and even allow that A side to be played for retake.
Yes, faith in the retake for M80 and strength in numbers, right? They're not just looking to make this a Koala game. They're looking to play all together. We heard it highlighted. You know, Nismo kind of been the two-man for this team in way of finding assists and really enabling players of this team. Much like you mentioned, KO Omen out towards A once more. Tucked away in Wine, though. This is the first time Xander will be playing this position. And it's on an eco round, right? It's not much that you can catch a team off guard by playing in Wine. If they catch him in this round, it won't be available again as Koala, man, doesn't even need Nismo this time around. I mean, the B site is just on lockdown if the Jet is here. Stingers finally get a couple of back, but Moose just needs to do so much more. And so far, it's just too overwhelming as M80 will put a fourth on the board.
Clean one there as well, and it changed, right, from what I mentioned before, where M80, they're going to make those rotations, they're going to be playing all together on those big rounds, those swing rounds even, but for this one, playing a little bit more far apart, keeping your distance from those Stingers, making sure the round will be the side of the defense. And again, a Koala noob that is just looking so clean now, passes that rifle, that Vandal onto one of the teammates.
Yep.
And it is time for the operator that we always know this guy for.
Woohoo! Koala up, makes an appearance, but I mean, it's not the operator that we need to pay attention to. It's the quick push on both sides through B main. Shopify have already claimed this space. Xander will find a backstab out towards tiles, but gets absolutely nothing. And I mean, we're 15 seconds into the round, and the spike's already planted, Dryad.
It was a plan there, maybe expecting a little bit more pressure towards mid, immediately backs up and has to play for the retake, yeah, because all of that space was giving up.
And that's a tough look there. E-Dog trying to go aggressive, but ready for it for M80. Nismo finds the first kill. Vic gets one in response. Now players tucked away here on this side as Vic sprays through the smoke. He's going to continue to try and find favorable trades for the team as only two remain. Nismo, it's John Cutie. Good spray from Vanity as he tucks himself away back sight, and that's going to force John Cutie to head for the hills. He collects himself an operator. He backs away. He'll look to save it. Vic just around the corner. Will not be able to strip this weapon away just yet, but the round does, however, belong to Shopify.
Very, very quick. And adaptation as well that you can expect from Vanity. Right, when things are not really working out, you see how quick the defense is rotating from the A side to the B side, where mostly we've seen that hit come through early on. And so then the call there for Vanity is playing a lot faster. I mean, an M80 that likes to play for those retakes, but not being able to get out just in time. The question is, how many more of those quick runs are we going to be seeing for Shopify? Because the most aggressive and fast team that we have for sure in Challengers, it is this M80 squad.
Get out of my way!
And what changes now that there's sure confirmation that an op's still on the board? They try to walk their way slowly this time around out towards mid and punished for it. Our Shopify Moose will grab those 2 kills back though, and with that M80 back away.
The read is just so good, right? Where it was what it seemed like a split A attempt with most of the players going towards catwalk, and there's this swing from M80. The defense once again taking them down. 3v3 and the knife are gonna get views here.
It doesn't reveal anybody, and 2 of 3 are here on this side of the map. No Commando gonna turn off the abilities. Xander still tucked away, hoping to get something here from this position in Wine. Seas goes out. He's actually gonna get tagged up. Taken down as Mata as he looked to play the swing. Moose there for the trade once more. 3 trades for the Cyphers. The resurrection comes through. John Cutie, the next one up. He cuts down 2, and Koala caps off the round, finally getting this operator on the board.
So quick as well with that reaction. You see that player towards Wine. Xander gets spotted there by the Fade Util. And all that destruction was for the 2 players on Haven to be able to get the last ones. Really well done once again by the aggression coming through. Not even afraid to go into those duels for M80 to get to 5 rounds. And that was 2 ultimates as well that we saw in that late round invested by Shopify, right? That no command we got to see early on. That knife that didn't even spot anything either.
Very misleading. It seemed like Shopify also got a little choked up inside A main after that resurrection. Allowed for John Cutie to collect 2 of 3 and make that round that much more winnable. It's the operator postured up. This is where it started at the beginning of last round. It starts here again, and finally Koala gets some early value. Capped off the last round. This time he gets it started.
One of the points as well that was mentioned, right, is Koala noob and then the kill that follows after when he gets taken down. But so far, that hasn't even been the case at all, right? Koala gets his 1. He's backing up. He's going to be playing safe in a different position. And it's just a perfect mix. The structure that this guy has to know exactly when the aggression has to come through is so, so good for M80.
Koala misses the shot. Fortunately, EU there to right the wrong. Vic falls, and again, that's the spike down, and a tumultuous position, right? A spot where you just don't want to walk up and grab it. Eventually, they do, but that's a couple of times already that we've seen the player with the spike walk up and die in a bad spot for Shopify.
And this is Shopify, from what we've seen, they just haven't been able to make those rotations to adapt after one of them gets taken down, right? It is one of them gets taken down, and they try to get that kill. So far, it just hasn't gone their way at all. Flawless here for M80.
And, I mean, we're 7 rounds in. The only round that's worked has kind of been this, hey, let's just slam it down this B site. The read from M80 to say, hey, if they're going to do that again, they're going to be running into Koala. And we haven't seen that type of aggression. Obviously, we just saw the look towards the B site once more. But what do you do, right? A timeout now in this one for Shopify. It seems that everything they've done outside of the slam B site when nobody was home, none of it, the rest of it's not working.
And a timeout here for Shopify that honestly, so far, with what we've seen on this team on the attacking side, they looked lost. And again, this map is so defensive-sided, so it is a favor right now for M80 to get all these rounds. But a Shopify that is trying to adapt, but we're not seeing maybe the fake plays as well, the mid-control that is getting denied over and over again. And this is now a problem for the next couple rounds that Shopify is trying to guarantee, right? 4 ultimates for M80 to play around.
That's terrifying. You mentioned it earlier in the game where M80 feel comfortable to play retake in some of the rounds in rotating early when spotting aggression and look to play together as they work their way across the map. And they have got some incredible tools to do just that. And they've given up the B site once more, right? They have players in close proximity. Unfortunately for Shopify, out of this timeout, they do not read that, and they set their eyes elsewhere.
And once again, super aggressive towards mid for this defensive side. Are they expecting Cinder to be here? He can get some great timing. Not expecting it, yeah.
And they are expecting it here. They didn't see the Xander play last time, so that's why M80 feel like they can go for it again. And they didn't really see it this time, unless footsteps were heard. I don't think they're spotting this Omen, throwing out the smoke and TPing inside of it. And this is going to be a tough angle to clear.
Yeah, Cinder's not planning on moving just yet, right? He's under. He doesn't have to. If they're expecting a push, it's from Cat.
No. Not like this, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
down mid.
It just doesn't seem that Shopify can do anything right. The kills that they're finding are kills in trades, and Moose has been good for those trades. Unfortunately, he's one and done this time. Now Vic and B-Dog, they're going to try and pick up the pieces, but this is a tough ask. Fortunately, From the Shadows is available, so Spike collection is going to be the job of the Omen Ultimate for Shopify, but after that, it's a plant and a 2v4.
30 seconds left.
Yeah, I mean, and at that point, everybody already knowing what this play is going to look like.
Let's go! Yeah, they know there is nothing tricky about this one. Out comes the Rolling Thunder. Flowinu gonna go up top. B-Dog will find 1. Now 3 remain with 15 seconds. Is this going to be enough time, or has Vic been forced to save with Spike in hand? It's gonna be close, Dryad, but he might be able to plant at the bottom of the stairs, and he does have enough time. So Spike down, and now a 1v3 with 50 health.
1v3 here for Vic. Pretty difficult against the side of M80, but at least making the right call, running and knowing that it was just enough time. This is the problem. It is the same kind of retake that we've seen, right, for M80. Everybody here is going to be playing together, clearing up close as well with the Prowler.
And Vic's timing has to be perfect. His shots have to be perfect. The eye reveals nothing. There's only so many places he can play. First one up is ZU. John there for the trade, and that will be the round. Shopify tried their darndest out of the timeout, but it still belongs to M80.
The 7th round here for M80. And that ultimate. And so, did they get it? He's on a mission right now. It's gonna be
close. Wow. I mean, M80 is just doing everything right. Even that, right? That's just they're up 7-1 in the game, and then they get the cake and they get to eat it too. The cherry on top is this operator's been followed through every single round. It's just, man,
that play was yeah, and the play early on was everything for this round. That play by Sander, he goes up close, and again, it was a Shopify. It was a read that, okay, you were expecting the aggression towards mid, but are you expecting it exactly there? And that patience would go for Sander, for him to capitalize from it, not really get Stu, and that's pretty much the round at that point. 7 here for M80. Not the best buy for Shopify to work with onto this one, and Colin gets smoked for Skag, but that hasn't stopped him before.
Oh, he's getting a little crazy here. A player just on the other side spots him and takes him down. Meanwhile, Moose the first to fall out towards B main, and again the spike, it's down in just a spammable position. Shopify continue to walk up into these chokes. They get punished for it.
I mean, B-Dog pushing here is just a death sentence with a crossfire.
Come get it.
Yeah,
it is a space, yeah.
M80, you know, I'm not going to put this out there because I don't want people to actually think this, but these guys just have a sixth sense right now. They just understand the way that the game needs to be played. When they put Shopify in these positions, they know they have to do something extreme, right? Somebody needs to get something in response, and that something was another play up towards mid. We've seen it a couple of times from Shopify, and it's been read every single time by M80. And Vic gonna try and fight his way out of this one. Finds a tag onto the first. It's Nismo down. Resurrection possible. John Cutie will tuck away to safety. Get this robot back on board. Vic gonna try his hand once more. 50 health for one, 45 for another, and a fragment cuts it down even lower, but Vic starts to pop off. 2 kills his way. But John on the trade leaves it all up to Mata, and time is on his side. A flash to buy some more. Another follow. A classic in hand. John not the healthiest. Footsteps heard, but the shorty is just too strong. Does he have the time? It does not seem like it. Mata's done just enough for another Shopify round.
And just wasting enough time as well. The duel with the shorty and the classic, that doesn't even matter at the end. Shopify, they secure that second round. And on this defensive side, it was more space that they were willing to give towards mid, towards that B side once again. And it's a version as well that we've seen before. Everybody's gonna back up from mid, but they are expecting this push that B-Dog did. So it's kind of a fake sense of confidence that they give, but for Big here to go massive, just enabling that round to belong to Shopify.
Vic highlighted at top of show. I know that feels like ages ago. Beautiful shot there. Finally, B-Dog able to get something going here. Neutralizes Koala at the start of this round. And Shopify is starting the driver's seat.
When you're looking at Shopify, so if you're trying to secure 2 more rounds at least, it would be a pretty good half to work with against M80. But it hasn't been easy at all. B-Dog with his operator trying to be the difference maker into it.
Ooh, I like that from Moose. Drops his ultimate. Good shot there from B-Dog. Cuts another number down. But with that neural theft online, you know that nobody feels too comfortable to peek angles because, you know, the neural theft reveals your position. So Moose takes that time to, instead of walk up towards mid, sprints into market, beat some of the angles that he knows that he can get past because people don't want to fight for it. And now he's got space once more into the spawn. Good sidestep there to find a kill onto John. But the job's not done yet. A 4v2 with that M80. Could opt into the save here. Doesn't feel like a winnable situation.
And after that timeout and a couple more rounds that we got to see, it is a Shopify that feels a lot more in control of the game, right? Something that early on was not the case at all, with M80 just running circles around them. And part of it, I think it goes back to something Roy was saying in the desk. It was Shopify that actually it is a really good matchup for the two IGLs. Maybe the lurks as well that Shopify tries to get early on. And even though M80 is having a good read on them, it is enough for them to get and buy that time to plan that spike, to play for the post, and to make those rounds just a little bit more difficult for M80.
The desk giving us some good insight as we take a look back at this round. B-Dog really starting to come into his skin here, as M80 are forced to take a timeout. M80 is a team that we do see them opt into a save more often than not. They are very conscious about their economy across the board. I didn't see what it looked like for the 3 players that died, but for the 2 that were still standing, I believe they had enough to repurchase into the next round. So they might be able to repurchase, drop a weapon over, make sure everybody's good in this one. Economy's kind of been, I guess, a talking point, right? Between teams opting into saving, teams opting into just playing strictly light shields. We see a lot more of teams being a bit more cognizant of what the credits look like as the game goes on.
And even then, on the other side, right, when you are on 80 and when you secure these 7 rounds, is more about denying that the space that Shopify has been getting early on, because they found that key, right, of playing faster into the sides, making that retake just a little bit more difficult, especially after one of the points that we mentioned too, right? Koala Noob, once he goes down and it is for that retake, or even when he has the operator, the chances do become a little bit smaller.
Ooh, this time it's no operator, but look at this. Off of the timeout, Shopify expecting something like this. Operator just has no chance on the angle. B-Dog and Vic Bo punish at the start of this round.
And this is different as well for Koala. When we've seen that aggression, often with the operator, it was towards B. But it was a split in the meantime. It was 2 of the players getting some info towards A, everybody else, including the spike towards B. And even M80, they already know this.
And I mean, if there is a smoke, M80 are going to shoot through it, especially if you're throwing util on the other side. So it's not, I believe, Nismo that got the kill. It was EU instead.
Spike
but
down.
Spam down with Vanity chipped away, and it didn't take much for EU to take him down. Mata gets the same exact fate of being 40 health and trying to win the round, but it ends flawlessly for M80.
Before the switch.
Stepping up the pace towards A. That was the answer after the timeout for M80. And a Shopify that after those timeouts, right, especially from this team, you have to be expecting the aggression, but that was the first time that we saw it exactly there, and it met so well, catching off guard 2 of the players. They were trying to play around, feel the map a little bit more, something that we haven't seen for this attacking side so much. Last round here, 3 ultimates, no command. A big one here to work with, and both of the Nightfalls too.
And this is, I mean, this is the M80 of Split 1, right? The confident M80 where they feel like they can't lose anything. They just put Koala in the front line, some util behind him. In the last couple of rounds, it has worked beautifully. And the last time these teams faced, it was a very dominant performance from Shopify. And their attacking side, M80 couldn't find a way to stop them. This time around, though, M80 are about to hold their attack to 3 rounds.
Spike down B.
Something that Nismo mentioned as well, learning from those mistakes. That's something that M80 is just really good at. And after that match that they lost, the only one that they lost in Split 2, we had to be expecting this, at least for the half. With the perfect reads in so many of these, and yet the last one getting taken down 9-3 on the half for M80.
Yeah, a couple of rounds that it felt very oppressive, as 9-3 is where we land. We're gonna hop away for a short halftime break, and we'll see you guys on the other side. And a short pause for some things on our end to make sure that, well, the players can play the game and the watchers can watch the game. As Dryad, it's kind of a harsh reality that we snap back into, where M80 take the lion's share of the first half, and it is by a pretty measurable amount. 9-3, 6 rounds the lead in Shopify. they got to show us an outstanding defense here.
This is a team for M80 that has always been good on this map, right? Since Split 1, they're 4-2. But this is the best score that they've gotten on the defense. So scary territory to jump in as we go into the second half in a Shopify that's trying to make that comeback round by round.
Good reveal there. I believe Koala may have gotten tagged by that. Maybe just walking out of range. Either way, time has subsided. So out goes the suppression. In goes M80s. They look to stun their way on through. Moose gonna get tagged up by Heaps. The utility, and Koala looks to just walk right through. B-Dog there for the save. A player atop the platform as Moose will grab one. Back to John Kitty to try and fight. He plants his feet. He fights his way out of it. But Vic finds himself once more the last man standing. Working his way out towards this B site. Two players that both popped down, and it's Xander.
Planted.
Allowed the plant. Oof, and allowed to sneak away. Vic wishing he could get that one back. The C's comes out. The health is low. The right click's enough, and the round is M80's.
And how different did that pistol look as well for M80 compared to what we saw from Shopify, right? They stay outside of B, they wait for a couple seconds expecting that aggression may be from Shopify, as they did in the first time that the two teams face each other. It doesn't happen. That is the green light for them to play more aggressive on the attacking side, securing now double digits. And now even forcing the buy here for Shopify.
And I mean, and this is a strange one, because you look at the setup and you say, wow, the breach is great. Nobody's playing breach on this map, but to kind of add to that difference, right? We're not standing inside the smoke in front of B main. We're playing just around the corner. And when we do get in that smoke in B main, we are ready to go. We've got a stun lined up. We're going to make sure that we don't get spammed out in these chokes, much like we saw from Shopify. So they lose that round, that being Shopify Rebellion, and they force into the next. It puts their economy in a tricky position, but should they win this round, it will obviously flip things on its head and they can get things going moving forward.
There's a chance here with the buy, with the Stingers at hand, and even the Marshall from B-Dog. One of the players that we've talked about just a little bit, got highlighted in a couple of rounds into the operator, but has been looking once again for that space to be given. And it hasn't been an option right now against M80.
Ooh, I love the trap wire from Moose here, trying to catch Koala. It doesn't do that, but the kill still comes through. Moose completely blinded up by the Prowler and was trying to find a kill off the back end of the utility there. A player revealed, but it just didn't matter. Finally, M80, though, starting to get whittled away at John Q. Going to take the fight with B-Dog. The shot will go wide. The site for now, it belongs to M80. A player stuck on the plant leaves only Nismo to try and fight his way out of this one, and they just don't have the space. Shopify, a huge round win.
A good play. Once you hear that spike getting planted, right? It is playing a lot faster, making sure that trade is not even a possibility. It's not going to be enough. And Shopify, they secure that anti-eco. That force even that allows them to get into this scenario, but it's still a long way to go against M80.
A long way to go, but I mean, a thrifty, a quote-unquote thrifty, or what's supposed to be your anti-eco round win. That force from Shopify, I mean, it flips the economy on its head completely. Theirs now starting to flourish. M80's hurting on the opposite side. It's a handful of classics and a stinger in the hands of Koala Noob. And I mean, that right there is going to feel like slingshots against the Shopify defense.
When we talked about Koala having those entries and then getting taken down, we were talking about this attacking side, right, more than anything else. This is when we need to have our eyes on Koala for these buys. Slightly stronger buy here for the Jet player, but I mean, it depends on how you look at the classics.
Good read there from Vanity, and I was wondering what his secondary was, that he was pushed up this aggressively inside B main, but he's just playing the jiggle, trying to get some information. See if anybody's rotated this way, and he's going to posture himself up nicely. I mean, a judge in this round. I mean, this could be a round of all time for Vanity.
The Prowler was used by the defense here. Doesn't spot anybody up close. That's why it was EU keeping his distance as well, just playing a little bit more like a sentinel in that specific scenario.
Oh, good Prowler though. Now they know the judge is here. It doesn't matter. Still able to find the first as Moose spams through, collects one onto Xander. A round that should belong to Shopify gets that much closer to doing so. 10 seconds just about left on the clock. The smoke subsides, the spam comes through, Mana falls, but a weapon to be collected here momentarily as M80 just hope to take a few more lives with them. They will not be allowed. Moose collects 3 on the round. Shopify will put their 5th on the board. Now this is where things get dicey as M80 will finally get to play the game.
Those rifles for the purchase into the round for M80. Seeing if we can get to 11 onto this one. With the plays that we've seen so far, right? And also remembering this comp, this is something that for M80 has worked out in the past. But it also doesn't really have a sentinel. So on this attacking side, they have to be hyper aware of either playing fast, playing for the post plant, and denying even that space for Shopify, or having that player like we saw EU just holding on to the side. Making sure the push from the defense is not going to happen.
Essentially having to dedicate a player to the flank. Or play fast, which is kind of
what they like.
Yeah, that's the M80 model. That is absolutely the M80 way. They're playing fast, however, into the bulk of the defense. 3 players here. That flash just moments too late. Mana falls. Good sees. Aftershock just behind it, and Walla maybe takes a bit of friendly fire before eventually falling, but every time M80 are put in a bad spot, John Cutie is here to bail them out with a 2K.
And constantly doing this. Vanity, the last one here, gets taken down. The split A that is just perfect here for M80. They get the info early on. I'm even surprised the Prowler caught into the KO so quickly. It seems like it was just out of sight, but perfect to get the first one, and the players having to be forced to go on to main and getting taken down right after. M80 really good here. I'm gonna change things up also for B-Dog with an operator into this one.
Yeah, operator and 1 pip away, so just needs a kill to have those blades online for the team. Neural theft available. We'll see if Moose can get close enough to a body. Get that ultimate online. Meanwhile, again, speed right here. Sonic speed from M80 as they work their way all the way up through mid. No util to slow him down, but Paranoia finally comes through. Vanity not only finds a kill, but dumps the ultimate for the information. And that'll slow things down for just a moment as B-Dog backs away, repostures with the operator.
With the knife, it was Vanity who knew the push was gonna come from mid. Probably a mid to B as it was an attempt by Koala. He has to play by switch and Vanity gets the kill. Good way to start things off and to shut down, again, the aggression that we've talked about on this side.
And it's also forced, I mentioned no util, right, to slow down. I was talking about Moose's util. Usually we see a trap wire here, an alarm bot here, something that tips you off to that play. Instead they put a player there, and they've now forced M80 to play into this trapped up site. We'll see if Moose can get any value off of this util.
There's 2 here, no jet as well, so the entry going for the updraft and dash. It's not even a possibility, just a perfect delay for Shopify.
Fragment goes out, it seems the majority of the squad just beat it there. Nismo tagged up by the first, also stunned up here, revealed, but not giving up his position just yet. It doesn't matter, he fights his way on out of it. Moose cannot collect. Vanity only able to get 1 in response, but numbers even here as the C's goes out. That means the health will be low. B-Dog not really in a vital position, but Vanity continues to fight for this team. 3 kills on the round. An operator in the hands of B-Dog and 3 players to worry about now for Xander, and it's just too much. Shopify, they continue the comeback here and find a 6th.
With everybody here so low, Vanity gets 3 kills. Into the ace side, so well played, just going around it for Shopify on this defensive side, where again the duel here is between what we get to see from Vanity and the space as well that B-Dog is able to get early on. Once those 2 things are working out, it just seems like it's a Shopify that can be unstoppable and have been before. This is the only team that beat M80 in the past. In the second split that we got to see, everybody else just had no chance against this team. The favorite one for sure, potentially for playoffs for Ascension.
And I mean, Shopify, although down 5 rounds, have demanded respect here from M80, calling their second timeout already. a team that, you know, we typically don't see need to call these timeouts. Usually able to get it done on the server, speaking amongst themselves, but getting the coach in the mix, they'll try and figure out how to work their way through this defense. They'll have to do so with a pretty meager buy. Not the best. We'll see how much they invest. They've got 2 players that can buy a bit. Typically, that means a weapon for Koala.
But in a lot of these rounds, the way that we're seeing the aggression and the fast pace be slowed down is by moves, right? This cipher that we often don't even see on this map at all. That has been a little bit more relevant recently. Again, this is the comp that Navi likes to play. And it is one that in the first half, Koala Noob didn't really have to deal with much. But now for those entries, is a move that's constantly tagging those players, getting that info and making those rounds just so much easier for Shopify.
And the buyers do buy 2 Guardians in the mix. No aggression inside A main, as you mentioned. Moose is trying to player to slow things down, and he's trying to do so on the A site. Meanwhile, Vanity and friends walked away out through B main. It's rounds like this where they feel so comfortable to take this space. They do so, and they just continue to collect. The flash will force B-Dog off the angle. Another to follow. And now the storm onto the site comes through. And Xander on. It's John Cutie to back away, and Nismo to collect the kill. Now the knives will finally get some value. It's a 1 HP breach. But a 3v3 no less, and M80 have got this A site.
Those 3 players of the defense with Shopify onto that B site. This retake now is so much more difficult.
Yeah, feeling maybe impossible here as Vanity collects 1 kill. It's the operator down. Nismo there on the trade, and Vic has to do it once more. This was the guy that silenced M80 in their previous matchup, and now he's given another opportunity. Finds the first, finds the second, and takes the round for Shopify.
One after the other, the flick for the last one and 45 HP. Vic is gonna do it once again. The eBay clutch and the play to secure that round for Shopify. Everything was working well. I mean, you see early on for M80, they only had to fade once again towards B. It was 3 players for that retake. And Vic is gonna save it all.
Now, we do have to mention that that was a round that should not have ended that way. It should not have been that close. The buy wasn't the best for M80. So coming out of that, you're thinking, wow, Shopify win the round. And then you see a glass cannon operator in the hands of Koala Noob. You see 4 Vandals on the opposite side as well. So they're not out of the woodworks just yet, right? They're still swimming in deep water here with this M80 team. But, I mean, the momentum now slowly but surely swinging their way every single time they take a round.
And on this defense for this Maran, not planning to go for the aggression that we saw before. But keeping Koala in EU on this attacking side, a little bit closer towards B. And I like this idea, right? Because from that last round, you start to catch those patterns. Okay, maybe EU is the one playing a little bit more like a sentinel, trying to get that info, making sure that M80's not losing the map control, and then everybody's gonna regroup with this player.
M80 do a good job avoiding that operator here at the start of the round, and now Moose.
Face your fear!
Moose and Mata. Eminem here. Gonna try and hold on to this B side. A dash through finds Koala. Tucked away at the switch. Trap wires not yet noted. Moose could still try and find some value here, but suppressed are the members of M80. They're gonna look to take the fights with the rifles, but the smokes will stop them for now. Prowler dealt with. Mata on the other side will also fall as Vanity sneaks one back. He backs away from it all. The defense now starting to bolster here. Backside, they'll swing on through as Moose collects one off his util. And there's no time. EU, a 1v2. 9 seconds on the clock. The spike is out of reach, and he can't even find the kills. Shopify will do it once more.
And holding it down by Moose and Vic all the way towards Boathouse, towards that backside. And it works so well as well because we see M80, they sent a hunt onto side, but there was a smoke as well. So yeah, the players, they could not get spotted. And the information was everything for the defensive side as they stay on this game for even longer. 8 so far, and the comeback a lot more doable now.
8 on the board, a 9th around the corner. You can never count out the stingers, but Vi definitely looks a bit better here for Shopify, and they're starting to prove it. Mata collects 2, Vanity gets 2. They're looking to find the full house, but B-Dog will find his way into the mix. And, well, if you blinked, you missed it. Round 20 is over, and it belongs to Shopify.
A quick one there for M80. The aggression as well, this time met by Shopify and shut down by them. I think I see an Odin on the mix. But the compositions here looking a little different because this is not what you are used to seeing on Ascent. The Odin hasn't been too much or of a part of a conversation, but for Shopify and for Vanity, this one is the one.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, lulled into a false sense of safety. Oh, no, Vanity is anything but safe here. Koala out and over the top. B-Dog also going to try and sneak away. Koala looks to collect the second. He runs out of ammunition, forced to reload, and he still gets one through the smoke. B-Dog biting off way more than he could chew.
Koala gets these kills with the Vandal like it's a Phantom. It's insane what this guy is doing.
Unpunished through smokes. M80, they did it for the entirety of their defense, right? They continued to punish Shopify through smokes, and then they do it here again on the attacking side. They give us a little glimpse of what the defense looked like. And with that, although it's been rainbows and sunshine for Shopify, they've had a good few rounds. They streak it back together. With this loss, they're now pushed against the wall. Map point just around the corner as Moose and Model look to hang on to their guns.
The fast pace as well that tried to be met by Shopify. The Odin as well that didn't even hit at all, and that put Vanity in such an uncomfortable position where the dash and the updraft as well from Kala was going to take him down in 2 seconds. The coordination as well for this one, I mean, it was a flash. There was no way out for Vanity. And it is what M80 does, right? You think you know how they play, you know they like to play fast, but you don't know which of the executions they're gonna have into the sides and which one is gonna be the last one that you get to see. 12 already for M80. And a Shopify, they got 4th in a row. They were getting that momentum, and now still fighting to stay in this map.
Oh man, disconnected our Shopify in here in what could be the last round of the map. Vic moves forward, flash out and over the top, unaffected our M80, and well, there are 3 players there to try and collect the kill, so smokes are gone, stall power removed, just a bit from Shopify, and M80 still in the driver's seat.
And Vic being the one that got taken down, right? The one that we saw 2 scenarios now clutching those rounds. And not there for it, with a different idea, with a different vision.
Oh, this is everything. B-Dog may be able to hide. No, I think he was spotted. Good flash, though. Koala actually not checking that angle. So the operator hasn't been removed just yet. Nismo going to get that spike planted. B-Dog's calling out to the team that maybe he can make a play here, but he's going to have to do it sooner rather than later. Time not on their side. Spike planted and a player down. Vanity goes fishing through the smoke. Doesn't find too much. Xander, it's damage on the other side. Paranoia to buy some time. Nismo was caught up in that, so they can't look to fight just yet as Xander starts to swing, starts to fight in the numbers. They don't favor Shopify. It's all up to Moose, and he's got 20 HP to his name, 10 per player, even less than. He finds some information, he takes down Nismo. Next up is ZU, but how much does this guy give? There's no time on the clock. Moose has to be perfect. Eye comes out, a tap on the spike. Once more it goes. The Prowler reveals, and this is how it ends. Moose can only hope for the kill, but it's ZU to get it instead. And M80 closes out here 13-9 in map 1.
13-9 in a second half that was looking promising for Shopify, but the last 2 rounds, they all belong to M80. There were some great ideas, I think, for M80 that we haven't seen before, right? And this is what makes this team the best that we had in the mid-season face-up, in that second split as well, being one of the best ones. And now, looking forward for this playoffs, it is the consistency for this map number 1 that I want to see more and more of.
Yeah, and M80 proved, right, that they were just doing a bit of testing, right? They were trying things out. They go back to what worked for them back in Split 1, and they get it done here in map 1. A very close map and a crushing defeat to Shopify as they looked to make their comeback, but unfortunately they fall short. But 2 more maps to go, Dryad. We already talked about at the beginning. We know we're going to a map 3. That's exactly what we're going to get. But we're off to a short break. We will meet you guys at the analyst desk on the other side.